Evening, everybody. My name is Matt Nahan, Board Chair of Living Arts. I want to start off by thanking each of you for joining us tonight and acknowledging several things. First, I'm coming to you from Southwest Detroit on the lands of the Anishinaabe or Three Fires people. Secondly, I'd like to honor all of the lives lost this past year to the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and racism. We are so excited to kick off the Power of Heart, a 30-day virtual campaign to support Living Arts with our first ever Heart Talk. Join us throughout the month of April on our social media channels as we share the stories of Living Arts' impact through video and photo from across the organization, but most importantly, the impact of arts and creative expression for our community and young people. As we enter another year of virtual programming, our ask for support has never been more critical. With students cut off from many of the social and emotional support systems they normally experience through in-person school and after-school activities, we know that providing a creative outlet and continued connection to their peers and caring adults is needed now more than ever. Despite the challenges of 2020 and ongoing virtual education, our teaching artists are still putting in the work to support young Detroiters. We know that arts and creative expression can build self-confidence, bolster critical thinking, and boost academic performance. But with the right teachers and mentors, the arts can be restorative and can help heal trauma. And believe me when I tell you, Living Arts teaching artists and program team are just the type of caring and brilliant humans up to that task. Today, we're asking for your support. Help us ensure Living Arts can continue to impact youth through at-home programming and engagement. Grab your phone, text Living Arts to 44321. Again, Living Arts to 44321, and you'll get a link to our Give Lively page. There, your donation will be matched dollar for dollar by our friends at the Cresswell Family Foundation. Any amounts are tremendously helpful, and on the Give Lively page, you'll see a whole list of ways that your dollars can impact Living Arts. Along with Cresswell Family Foundation, I'd also like to thank our other lead donors, the Robinson family, PNC Bank, and DKSS CPA and Advisors. Thank you all so much for your sponsorship. You help us to make this work possible. Now, for the reason you're all here tonight, Zack Bissell and AleshaNicole. Zack Bissell is the out-of-school arts program manager for Living Arts. He is an educator, arts administrator, and musician. Originally from rural northwestern Michigan, Zack has over 8 years of experience in youth educational programs, including community-based programs in the visual and performing arts, youth development, LGBTQ+ health, and, fun fact, he taught English in South Korea. Zack is also fluent in Spanish, proficient in Portuguese, and has been key in lifting up the voices of parents through the Living Arts Parent Advisory Council and coordinating youth voice projects like the Open Arts Fest. AleshaNicole is a musician, arts educator, and intuitive coach, holding safe space for self-healing. As a teaching artist with Living Arts, she has pioneered multiple programs with other artists. She is a singer, a songwriter, and pianist working on completing her third and fourth self-released albums. Alesha's career is rooted in her motto as an artist and hopes to inspire you to do the same. Spread love, spread joy every day in your own way. This year with Living Arts, Miss Alesha has helped lead the way in bringing Living Arts work to home-based childcare spaces through the Bright More Quality Initiative, as well as leading classes at Matrix Head Start and in our out-of-school arts program at the Ford Resource and Engagement Center here in Southwest Detroit. So without further ado, here they are. Thank you both so much for being with us tonight, and the immense gratitude that I have for both of you for all of the amazing work that you do for Living Arts.
Thanks so much, Matt, and thank you for the introduction. For our viewers, I'd just like to note real quick that Matt has recently been named Crane's notable board member for Living Arts. So thank you so much for all the work that you do for Living Arts to support the work that we do, and congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks, Zack.
Yeah, and welcome to all our guests and viewers, all the supporters that are joining us on the call today. Thank you all for being here to support our programs. So Alesha and I will dive into the conversation in just a moment, but I wanted to mention that we'll be hosting a 15-minute Q&A at the end. So feel free to ask your questions throughout the duration of the conversation through YouTube or the Facebook live chat, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. And as a reminder, at any point tonight, you can text Living Arts to 44321 to give a gift of any amount, which will help support our youth through the arts as we continue to work virtually until it's safe to do so otherwise. Hi, Alesha. How are you doing? Welcome.
Hey, it's so good to see your face.
Yeah, it's great to be with you virtually. Let's dive right in and kick off with our first question.
Let's do it.
So we've all experienced some pretty major changes the past year. What has the switch to virtual been like for you?
Oh, man. Let's just say it's been, it's been like, I'll say what a pastor said a long time ago. He was doing a church plant, and he said the most perfect analogy ever. It's like building the airplane while it's in the sky. You know, it's literally like, okay, we're just going to go with this and see what happens. I think what's been very helpful is knowing that we already do this work, right? I know you and I had talked in one of our first heart-to-hearts that we generally have after or even before classes about how we have tool belts. You know, we as artists who have been trained and certified in different techniques or art strategies, who have resumes of working in our field and working with children, we collect all these tools in our belt and tend to forget that when these kind of situations arise where it's Jumanji 2020, like I've said before, all we really have to do is start reaching in the tool belt. So it has been a challenge, but it's probably been one of the best obstacles I've ever experienced in my career, because it's pulled out things that I didn't recognize that I had inside of me.
What types of tools have you been pulling out of your tool belt for this year?
A lot of that crowd responsiveness from dueling pianos that I got, being able to be responsive, adapt, be flexible, and then a lot of the things that I've learned just by being, you know, a coach and leader in spiritual community, in terms of like, go with the flow and appeal to the sense of humanity, and remember that we're just people trying to connect through the arts. You know, I was thinking earlier today about how none of these students had seen my house before. You know, they hadn't seen Miss Alesha eat, or like, sorry, gotta go to the bathroom. You know, like there's this funny, I guess, quirkiness about the classes now, because they're like, oh, she has a house too. Oh, that's right. She has a mom and a daughter and all these other things. And I think it's really helped my parents, because I do a lot of the family involvement classes, as you know, who are there with me on the Zooms. It's helped the parents feel that sense of connection too. So now we're giving each other tips on how we're getting through potty training, or we're, you know, it really feels surprisingly more like a community sometimes in the virtual experience.
Definitely. I know I've shared some of those similar experiences, even just thinking about how we navigated the beginning of the pandemic and choosing to do online programming and focus on that human connection. What has that been like in your virtual classes, focusing on the human connection that you have with your participants?
I would say that was a part that I had in person that was brief. In person it was like, okay, we're on a schedule and there's a format and I'm only going to use first 5 minutes to kind of say hi, and then I'm going to use 40 something minutes for it was very structured and I wasn't intentional. I mean, I'm very improv and go with the flow impromptu. I got an idea in my head, it might happen, it might not. I think now in virtual, we spend a lot more time in the beginning, just like, how are you? What's going on emotionally as a family? What do you need today? What are we working on? And then at the end, same thing, there's like a longer debrief. So there's a lot more time spent checking in on each other. And a lot of times, like I said, same thing I had in person, because I've been living arts for 7 years. I was pregnant teaching, and then I had Aiden on my chest in a baby carrier teaching. There's been lots of things I've done. I think what's happening now virtually is that I'm taking that impromptu idea and that lesson as even smaller of a grain of salt, So we might not be in the mood today to do this, and that's okay. I only know by taking that time in the beginning to really check in heart to heart and feel the room.
Yeah, absolutely. It's making me think of things that all of us are learning in how we run these classes and with the people that we're working with. Things that we might want to take with us after the pandemic when we go back to in-person classes. What do you think that you would take with you that you've learned from your online classes? What would you take with you to your in-person classes once we resume those?
That I'm a person first. I am a community member, a friend, a sister, a fellow mom, a spirit. That's what I am first. And then I'm bringing all of that, showing up as my whole self, into my artistry and bringing the artistry into the teaching. I think I'm changing a lot of what my focus is in the moment. And it helps, because it used to be, and this is globally, I believe, one thing that we've learned from this whole experience is that we weren't taking care of ourselves, we weren't taking care of the community, and we weren't taking care of certain groups. I love that Matt said the twin pandemic, like, come on, that was perfect. In the way that we need to be, right? And so there was a lot of times where, as a performer doing dueling pianos for years all over the country, as AleshaNicole, the artist in my own shows, and then as a teaching artist and healing artist, it was like, okay, Alesha, leave it all at the door. You can't feel anything right now. But that's where we are the most alike, is in that sense of, I'm all of this stuff when I show up in my classroom. Right? And if I had a bad day, that's part of the experience. I can use that, or if I'm stressed out, or, even going through a lot of huge life changes I was going through, I would come and talk to you in the office, maybe cry it out, go to the bathroom, and then come in there and be, Miss Alesha's happy and welcome to Wonderland, instead of like, how can I use this right now and let these children see this sense of humanity? We can't hide that anymore because we've all been through serious world trauma,
Mm-hmm. I've been reflecting a lot on that this year, and even how the arts really connect us to a lot of that in a way that is to a benefit to our classes and to our families and to the teaching artists. How do you think that the art forms that you use in your class, music, movement, how do you think that those allow us to explore those human connections a little bit deeper?
I am going to reject all shame at the corniness of the phrase I'm about to say, but arts really are living, like Living Arts is a perfect name for our organization because we are art. Every child that I encounter in classes is an artist. It's all about me helping them discover their voice and discover their talent that they already have. They were born with it. And so I think the arts are the language that as children, especially when I'm working with my infants, the 1 to 2s, and even 3 to 5s that are kind of navigating emotions in general, let alone in the middle of a pandemic, that it's a language that gives us expression that we may not have in any other language at the time, verbal language, nonverbal language, you know, that the arts give us a way to express ourselves. You know, I did this song with my fellow teaching artist, Kimberly Boyd. We're working in the BQI, as Matt talked about, with Brightmore Quality Initiative, with the in-home daycare centers and development centers, with professional development, with self-care, with working with the children. And she and I did a partnership on a song I made up the other day that was about feelings that come and go. You know, feelings come and feelings go away. Some feelings hum, some feelings dance and play. And then throughout the whole song, it's just me. You know, and then, well, when you're 1 or 2, your body shows how you're feeling, or your tells you, you know, there's not always a way to express that. And then sometimes I don't want to express my anger appropriately. And I'm 32, turning 33, you know? So if I could stomp it out, or I could beat on that drum and channel that energy, the arts just give us a container, you know, like Matt said in my bio, that I like holding space for things to happen. So what are you feeling today? Here's a safe space to express it, and here's some tools that are appropriate.
For sure. It makes me think a lot about just what I've seen in general in your classes with your teaching pedagogy, and it's often very exploratory. And like you mentioned earlier, you rely a lot on improv in your classes. A lot of it is in response to what you're seeing to your student, or seeing in your students and seeing with your families. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and maybe give us some examples of some exploratory lessons you had online this year?
Yes. Sound exploration is my favorite, because there's sounds all around us all the time, you know, and I believe that a big part of showing up for children socially, emotionally, and even with arts integration is to be more aware and more present in the moment as to what's going on. And I think sounds are an easy way to kind of tune yourself in. And so we've done a lot of playing around with, don't get up from your spot. What do you see with your eyes right now that you can grab and make music with, you know? I did a whole lesson one day where I had a bird whistle, and I love those things, they're fun. But I was like, I'm sick of being in my house right now, and I can't exactly meet with them, and they might not be able to go outside, but I can, and they can go on this adventure with me. And so I went outside, and I have 3 bird feeders because I have like 40 birds that just fight over bird food in my yard. And I went out to the bird feeders, and we talked about birds and how we get the food and what sound the food would make when it goes into the bird feeder. And, ooh, I just heard a car go by, and oh, what do you hear? You know, and we just kind of tuned into exploring what was happening in the moment. And we've done lots of things like that, you know, playing in the sink in my bathroom, like just silly things to make being at home an adventure instead of, you know, feeling like you're in containment camp. So I like the idea of using anything. With parents, there's been moments, I think I've done this in the last year. Yeah, I did it in one of the living arts at home modules. I took a purse or a bag and just emptied it out on a video. And it was like, what's in your purse that you can use in a moment to calm yourself down, or to make a beat, or to play and get into your inner child, that inner artist that we all have. And these are art strategies, but they're brought into a very basic daily experience of life that you can explore music, art, movement in any way, really.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about the connections that you've made with your families in your classes, and what the significance of young people and their families taking classes together would be. Why is that important to you?
Ooh. I I'm not sure I understood the importance until I had my son. And it made me really emotional when I would go to classes with him and start to see through the parents' eyes in a whole new way. A whole new way. Okay, sorry. I'm like literally a jukebox. There's something special about my child experiencing something with me. It's imprinting. It becomes a cue dependent memory for them, for him to use when he's 30 years old. There's just something so special about learning something with mom or dad and sister and brother. We have lots of siblings in our classes in living arts, right? And so I think about today, for example, it's beautiful that I'm working in the BQI network because I'm also a mom in the BQI network. And so I get to see things as an artist jumping in and helping, and I get to be part of the community as a mom with a child there. And he made Easter baskets today, right, at school. But then coming into the car and talking to me about it and then going to my mom's house and doing it with her, there's just a different lens. And so from the child's perspective, I think it's really important to do family involvement classes and the parents to at least be witnessing, seeing what the testimony of what's going on that's happening, because we give them the strategies then that they could turn into their own to use at home. And we let them recognize that they're teachers for their children already by the fact that they gave birth to them, And then from the parents' perspective also, I would say it gets that overly responsible adult that we all tap into back into the inner child. Like, we forget so easily that some of your and my favorite, even when you're talking about band, right? Marches and symphonic band songs and popular songs, we have memories of it being at home dancing with our siblings, or mom was playing a record on Sunday before church, or that's the microcosm of society. So why not start there with the children?
For sure. That brings up so many thoughts for me. It's making me remember marches that we just talked about like 10 minutes ago. But also it's making me think of songs that I remember hearing in the car with my parents, or hearing a song and immediately thinking of my dad.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a really interesting thought. The parents as partners in this, and that this is something that's accessible for people in their everyday lives to even just empty out a purse and find ways to process what's going on and express yourself. That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
I'm curious also, many of our teaching artists have also been have been teaching with us for quite a few years. So what has your experience been working with our team of teaching artists for so long?
These are amazing people. You forget that, and I say you universally, right? We forget so often that it takes certain people to do certain work. It takes people with certain skill sets, qualities, and core values to do certain types of work, right? And we all in this organization, I hate calling it a company or organization because we really are this family. We all in the LA family work in different programs. And I've had the blessing of working in all of our programs in these past 7 years. And what I've learned as I've met different artists and then hung out with them outside of the work is that we all share like this common stream of truth when it comes to the arts and when it comes to what we use them for. We're all entertainers, we're all performers, we're all artists that create artwork. And getting better at my yes ands. And we all have this stream of truth that art goes way back to drum circles in tribes, that art has been communication for centuries, that art is something that we all innately experience within ourselves, and that it is something that connects us as a species and intra-species, right? I can sing and be recording and my dog is here having experienced it. Like this is a real thing. We've heard about music and other animals that we typically wouldn't be able to communicate or connect with. So there's just something so special about that art. And when you have artists that work at that almost molecular or ancestral, very spiritual level with the art, it's funny that you'll meet people in these big team meetings and you're like, oh my God, you're my people, you're my tribe. There's just something about Living Arts that has an integrity about the artists that they work with. And also recognizing, this is big kudos to Matt, it's kudos to the whole board, it's kudos to Alyssa, all of you that are on the staff, that you have made Living Arts about the artists. There aren't many organizations that can do that with grace and have stuff like Matt winning awards or positions, and then the best run nonprofit. Like, it's a big accolade to be one of those artists and say that's not fake. Like, that's how the organization is. When we get together, we inspire each other. We feel revved up by those team meetings and by those chat and choose or the jam sessions that we've tried to get going. Like, I know I could talk about this for ages, but I think, like I said, we all share something so very special that's at many times not able to be expressed through words. We just all feel it. There's something we all share that's real special.
For sure. I've definitely tapped into that myself too. It's hard to put words to it. But that type of collaboration that we have, before I schedule any classes for you, we're going to talk about how we're going to schedule it and how we're going to position it within the schedule, how it works, who we think might be involved in it. And I think that's, part of the beauty of our work too, is we craft things in response to what we're seeing. What is something that you've learned from our team of teaching artists, or something that you've connected to, or something that's kind of been enhanced within yourself by working with our team of teaching artists?
You're trying to get me emotional. Cut it out. We activate our personal power, and we almost demand the same from each other. I remember Stop It, I felt that whole, you and I are impasse. I'm like, stop it, I felt that breath. Cut it out. No tears. Okay, I'm just kidding. There was that moment in this past year. I remember I sent you a text or an email, and I was like, Zack, I'm feeling a burnout, and I'm not feeling excited about something. And it was like, please let us talk. I don't want to show up and not be fresh and excited and gung-ho about what I'm doing, because again, you guys have made, and you guys as in Living Arts board, staff, team, artists, have made this, what's the word I want to say? There's almost like a presupposition, but there's also a precedent, that we want you guys to enjoy what you're doing. And so when you know that, and then you talk about these kind of things because you know that you can, there's just this personal power that comes out. There's a confidence that comes out, because there aren't many people who can say they have a talent and they're working full-time in their talent, and they're working full-time in their talent in a space where using your voice is not only welcomed, but encouraged at times and demanded at even other times. And I feel like working with them, I've had 2 of them here recently, and we were talking about one of my projects, and I didn't have to say certain things because they were family. We had never worked together like that, but they're family with Living Arts. And all of the skills and tools and strategies that we've learned from team meetings, from trainings, from the past, and the Zooms, like the unconference, that's what brought 2 of us really tight together. And when they were here, I felt as if I was in a Living Arts meeting. Like, they were doing the same, like, bring that power out. We want you to be who you're called to be with this thing. And it was like, this is why we do this work. Yes, this is why I'm supposed to be here. But that brought me, I remember that meeting with you and Alyssa, I was in tears, and they were tears of joy and tears of relief and tears of freedom. It was just like, this is the kind of place and the kind of tribe and the kind of position I dreamt of when I was the age of the kids that we teach. I want to work somewhere where I can just be me, and I can be celebrated for being me, and I can be given opportunities for being me, and asked if I want them, and then other things are found, and then you say what you want, and it's like, let me go find that for you. Like, it's just, okay. If you can't tell, I like what I do.
No, you're making me a little emotional too, because I would definitely echo all of that. And maybe it's because we work on this together. We're experiencing similar things. But I echo the same thing, that I feel like I'm using my strengths in my position, using my degree in arts and humanities in this position, and being able to have the connections that I have with our teaching artists and our team. And I think that's really something that's helped us get through this pandemic and come together as a team and say, what are we going to do next? How can we still support the youth in the community, and not have it be something that was too much, or something that was more than we could handle. But our relationships helped us build something that was true, that was honest to what we were building together, what we wanted to do. So yeah, you kind of touched my heart a little bit with that. I think that's very true for me. So we do have just about 5 minutes left for one final question before we move to the Q&A section. So for the viewers who want to ask some Q&A questions, feel free to get those into the chat now or soon. But we're going to ask one more question before we get over there. Let's see. In general, what would you say brings you to this work in general, to Wolf Trap and Baby Arts Play, and to the arts classes? What in general brings you to this work?
That's a deep question. I feel like I've had opportunities in my life to chase certain dreams that other people have for their path, for their art form. I've had opportunities to go use my musicianship in any other way. And I think the reason it's so fulfilling, so that's part of the answer, because it's fulfilling at a level that those other things are not, right? I'm working on my 3rd and 4th album. That's fulfilling in a certain way, because that's putting my art out there to share with others and to help people self-heal and transform and get through this mess that we just came through, right? Through my music and my work. When I do get to perform, I've done some lives here and there. That's kind of like a different thing that's fulfilling in a different way. In the Sunday Toppings podcast I do with my fellow pianist, Alan, that's a whole different, they're all different fulfillments. I think with living arts and doing it with these children, it's a way of me giving back to the village that raised me up. It feels as if I'm keeping my roots with my inner child. And I'm able to bring into what we're doing in our work in Southwest, well, we're a lot of places in Detroit now, it's not just Southwest, is the color that wasn't there for little Lily, is what I was as a kid. And so as AleshaNicole, the artist who is in her power and knows what she's doing and has all of this experience now, I get to put my pizzazz and my sparkle into what these children are experiencing, the same way that the people I remember, when I was in Waldorf as a preschooler and my mom as a teacher for 30 years doing music, they put their own spark and their flavor. And I think that's it's the circle of life. It's really cool.
For sure. That makes me think, I think that's true for a lot of us who do youth development or who work in the arts and youth arts programs. A lot of us had people who were special to us when we were kids. Mm-hmm. I think of my band director, Jay Gainforth, and my piano teacher, Sue Gainforth, who did everything, pretty much all the art programs in our rural school for quite a while. And I really think that they're part of the reason why I do this work today. But yeah, thank you for sharing some of that. We're going to transition over to some of the questions from our viewers. So we've got a question from India in Baltimore, Maryland. And their question is, what is something that has surprised you this year?
In general?
Just something.
Right? Something that surprised me this year. Oh, and we're in 2021. I love it. Okay, so all the love that's around me that I didn't notice before has surprised me big time. You can't see the forest from the trees, right? And so I had my focus on certain groups or certain people or certain cliques, that for a long time felt as if I just didn't fit. I've always felt like I fit into every box, but none at the same time, because I'm so adaptable. And when I decided to kind of like, okay, step back, like we all had to, and do this self-work and face your own mess when you're in quarantine, step back and then go, whoa, that person loves me. And that person, wait a minute, I've been missing my tribe this whole time. That surprised me big time, that there's love right in front of my face. Like, you're one of my people, that I feel like I can go to. And then there's people that have different lives, but in some way we just click. So I've been really surprised at how much love was right under my nose, and I didn't notice it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've got another question for viewers who still want to ask some questions. Feel free to continue sending them in. We're taking them live as you send them in. But we've got a question from Elena in Michigan, and her question is, what has been the most defining moment for you in this role that made you said, yep, this is where I am supposed to be, or at least the first one that comes to mind?
I had trauma upon trauma, and many people in my life, people that are probably watching right now that are my folks, right, that I grew up with or whatnot, didn't even know I was going through things I was going through, because sometimes as an entertainer and performer, we're good at putting that mask on. And I had gone through a separation, and then a pregnancy, and then a very, very difficult, traumatic 72-hour birth story with my son, and then a divorce, and I was still working through all of this. I was still teaching classes. I was still coming into the office, and it was when Alyssa and Erica and Susanna and you and people that I had to see all day, every day for some reason, right? And Robin and so many people, they held me up, they had my back. And when I said on some days, like, I can't today, I just can't, everything's falling on me and it's difficult. I called some people like Kimberly Boyd during panic attacks that I was having. And when I knew that the company or the group, I don't like these company organization, I know that's what we are, but when Living Arts had my best interest of my heart at mind, it changed the whole ball game. Because now I knew I could count on them, not just to want me to perform and do my job, but they understood that me being healthy and me being taken care of and having my well-being was part of me doing that job. And so, yeah, that was a huge moment for me.
Yeah, I feel that. I think it even harkens back a little bit to our view of doing this work with youth. If we want that for youth, we also want that for our teaching artists. We want that for our staff. We want that for the parents and families that we're working with. So we see that as it's very, part of a whole. It's very holistic in that sense. One more question from Alishan. What is one of your long-term goals?
Hey, that's my friend. Okay. Oh my goodness. So, Zack, were you and I the one talking about this? You and I have had so many good talks. Someone asked me one day, like, what's Alesha's big achievement? And they were like, is it a Grammy? And I was like, no. And they said, so what's your version of a Grammy? One of the best questions I've ever been asked. And now I ask people that. What's your version of a Grammy? My version of a Grammy is being in convention centers or retreat centers or conference centers full of 3,000 or more people, or even 30 people, right? But doing the work that I do naturally, using my voice, using drumming, using my instruments, using my interactive performance skills, using the teaching things I've gotten from working with Living Arts, all these things together to help people heal themselves and transform their lives and come out of traumas and transition into triumph, where they're living their life thriving in purpose and on purpose. And the experience with like a live band has become this transformative event, where that's my norm, where that's my gig. You know, that's my long-term goal, that I can retire from being in that space and know that I'm surrounded by a team of people that, very much like Living Arts has taught me, I'm not crying. It's so important to have people that are like-minded and kindred spirits and have that stream of truth we were talking about. And I'm already seeing that many of the people I work with in Living Arts are becoming people on that goal path with me. And so, Living Arts it's definitely set a standard, let's just say that, in my life. And it set the stage for me in many ways. Oh, nice pun, get it? Set the stage, because I'm an artist. I crack myself up.
We have just a statement from one of our viewers. It's from Kendra, and Kendra says, "I don't have a question, but a statement. I've known Alisha and her beautiful family for years. I'm so proud of her growth. She has evolved into a beautiful butterfly. It warms my heart to see her live her truth." That's beautiful. Thank you, Kendra.
Yes.
That reminds me a lot, when you were talking about that, it reminds me a lot of the teaching artist gathering that we had. It was probably 2017 or 2016 over at the Ford Resource and Engagement Center. And we were just at the very end of it. And I think you just very naturally took out a drum and started playing, and our teaching artists circled up. And it was still one of my most memorable moments with Living Arts.
Wow.
We all just started dancing. We each had a turn to do a dance move. And it was just full of joy. And it was just a moment that happened so organically. It wasn't planned. We didn't tap you to lead anything in that moment. We all just came together and found that moment of joy together. So what you were talking about as a long-term goal definitely reminded me of that moment.
Yay. It feels like I'm already doing it, right? And that's, I think, I guess before we close out, my biggest takeaway for everybody today is just, you're already doing your purpose, you know? And that's what Living Arts really is about, right? If we're empowering youth, it's saying, you already have this within you. You know, we just want to pull it up, awaken it, cultivate it, develop it. And I just think it's so powerful, because Zack, you and I were doing it when we were playing saxophone in bands, and we were doing it when we were memorizing pieces of music no one cared about, you know? We were already on the stepping stones to what we're meant to do. And I think Living Arts has taught me that above everything. One of the biggest life lessons, I can thank all of Living Arts people, and even Matt Nahan, who I've known since I was a little itty bitty little girl, is that you are teaching all of us that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. And we were doing it before this, we're doing it through it, we're going to continue doing it after, and that you guys give us a space to recognize that, hey, what you're doing is important, and we're going to uplift you. We're going to promote you. We're going to magnify your gifts. And just a heartfelt thank you to everybody in Living Arts for that.
We've got a great comment from Karen. Karen, one of our parents, also my right-hand lady.
Yeah.
She does so much for us. But she commented that this also is a bonding experience that we can all continue at home. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, or what you've seen from that?
Yes. The same way that there's artists within every child, there's a professional inside of every parent, and they are the first professional at their children. You know, they have PhDs in their children. And I love, that was one of the conversations you and I had when I was like, I need to see this from a different angle. It was that I want the parents to feel like they're getting these strategies and they're able to go and do stuff in their own way and bond with their children in a new way, or with a new instrument, or with a new idea every time we meet. And so I had gotten to that point. Karen was actually, I think, maybe the one who inspired it for me, where I was like, ooh, how could, because Ella had been with me for a long time, I'm sorry, I'm saying names, but whatever. Okay. And her son had also been with me since he was younger in the class. And I was like, this is like a university. This is not just a semester type thing we're doing here. So like we can walk through some goals here that you have at home. How can I help you and be a co-creator with you in your life with your children and give you some skills that actually match what you're trying to do? And I think something you mentioned earlier was, this is something that I want to even continue, as I keep doing this work with Living Arts, is how can I Elena had brought that up before, how can I evolve as an artist based off of what I'm learning from the families and the students, because they're teaching me through my teaching experience how to get more tools on the belt, how to go further with it. And as a kinesthetic learner, that's the best way for me, is by doing it. So I completely agree, Karen. And it's so powerful to be a parent and to have something that's got novelty to it, to bond with your children.
One thing that you also touched on that I just want to comment on real quick is how oftentimes you throw in our programs for years. Just taking Karen's example, her son joined our programs when I think, he was really young, probably 3 or 4 years old. And we've seen students join when they're super young, and they stay until they're seniors in high school.
Wow.
Some of the ones that have gone through your early learning programs with Wolf Trap and Baby Arts Play have now moved on into our dance and visual art programs at Out of School Arts.
So cool.
And we just get to continue those relationships. And it really does lead back to, we don't necessarily just pass the families on. They just get, integrated into our family circle, more or less. So I think that on my end, that's a beautiful thing that I've seen over the past few years working here.
For sure.
So we've got one last question for you.
Okay.
And this one's from Rachel in Michigan. How do you see the way that you teach changing when you're able to go back to in-person teaching?
Oh boy.
That's a big one.
Oh man. With a lot more grace, a lot more patience, a lot more compassion for myself, for the families, and for each child. There's something to be said about what the heck just happened. That, that sensation we're all experiencing, that we're kind of all still in, like, did we just go into, I literally feel like Robin Williams and Jumanji at times, like, where am I? What's happening? Is the game over? Can we now, we feel that. And I think, grace and compassion is going to be a big part of it. And there's going to be a lot more questions. There's going to be a lot more, what do you need from this before I even start? It's not going to be, well, I want to do this and here are my ideas. And, a lot more grace and compassion for certain. And knowing that we're all figuring it out. This virtual thing has even shown me, like, okay, we're resilient and we can figure it out. And it takes time. A lot of times before, I think in my teaching, it was get it done. I want this outcome from myself right now, right? Like, I want to be at the end game. I'm also an Aries, but I want to be at the finish line tomorrow. And this has just shown, hey, things can come up. Big old towers can be thrown and fallen in the middle of the race. And you have to just, okay, we'll figure this out with grace, with compassion.
Yeah, that's a good point. As much as we've learned so far throughout all this, when we return back in person, there's going to be another level of learning that we're going to do, which is another opportunity to practice grace with ourselves.
Yes.
I also love the Jumanji element. Is this over yet? Are we out of here?
Are we done?
That's silly. On that note, that is the end of our time for the Q&A portion. So thank you for everybody who sent in questions for that. We've had so much fun with everybody tonight and in our conversation with you, Alesha. So we just want to say a huge thank you to you, Alesha, for the wonderful conversation. It's always great to have deep conversations with you, and I know this is not going to be our last one.
Not even close.
I'd also like to give a massive thank you to the Cresswell Family Foundation. They're matching every gift received tonight and throughout the rest of the month for our month-long virtual campaign. Also, a big thank you to our other lead donors, the Robinson Family, PNC Bank, and DKSS CPA and Advisors. And just a reminder, you can text Living Arts to 44321 to give your gift today or anytime throughout the month of April. The campaign will run this whole month, so you can follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to see and hear more stories about the impact of living arts. You can also tag us and use hashtag Living Arts at Home and hashtag The Power of Heart to share your living arts story and how it's impacted you. So have a great night, everybody. Don't forget to join Brent and Asia on April 30th at 7 p.m. for our last Heart Talk. Registration for the event will be live soon, and we'll also announce the results of our campaign on that night as well. So thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night.
Good night.